Mr. Vox Day, how you doing, sir? Can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me. Oh, I was wondering why you couldn't hear me. It's because I was muted.
Do it.
That'll do it. Yeah, if you're muted, it won't work. How you been, man? Milo's gonna be here. He said he'd be here a little bit after 8, but yeah, he's still coming. How you been, man?
Great. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a while. What you been working on lately?
Well, if you see most of those books behind me, the leather ones,
Yeah,
those are all ours.
that's pretty
So
awesome.
yeah, so we run a regular publishing house, and we also do comics. We have a Toon site with 7,000 comics episodes on it called archaven.com. But our main thing is we're one of the only leather book manufacturers in the world.
Really?
Hmm.
You know, now that you mention it, you don't see leather books. When I was growing up, you saw them all the time, but
Yeah,
you don't.
Franklin Library used to produce them. They were the big leaders, and they shut down in 2000. And so Easton Press had started up to compete with them in like 1975, and then I just wanted to do it, and fortunately, some of our supporters, backed us, and next thing we're doing bigger print runs than Folio Society or Easton often do.
Yeah, well, they look awesome. They just have a better feel. I mean, leather books are just cool, like old school, old world style. You know what I mean? So, in
Yeah,
my
they
opinion,
last for
yeah,
hundreds of years,
yeah,
and
literally.
and it's really kind of cool because we're bringing back some books. Like we did a reproduction of a first edition of Pride and Prejudice. We're going to be doing some. We're actually working now with Cambridge University Press, the
Oh,
oldest press
really?
in the world. Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty big deal. uh,
Yeah, I'm kind of a big deal, Ralph.
I got a little bit of a big deal here. You mentioned Jane Austen. It made me think about Wuthering Heights. I had to do a little. She didn't write Wuthering Heights, but made me do a little thinking. I did read Pride and Prejudice on my little state-sponsored vacation as well, though. Read a
It's a
lot of
good book.
classics, but Wuthering Heights was probably my favorite.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the Brontes, and
yeah, yeah, Emily,
it,
I think, but I have to
it's
double
it's
check.
it's a good book. It's a good book. I mean, we're probably going to do um, Jane Eyre pretty
Yeah,
soon.
Jane Eyre's one of the Brontes too. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that we're doing that's going to be really cool and really unusual is we're doing a 9-volume set of the Cambridge history of Japan,
Oh, sick.
and so we're not going to do that many because there's not that. It's not like everybody goes, yes, I want a very detailed 9-volume history of Japan, but it's just the kind of thing that Folio's not going to do, Easton's not going to do. So it's fun to be able to up the ante. I mean, we actually use, believe it or not, we use better paper than Folio does. They're supposed to be like the creme de la creme, but our stuff is genuine. I mean, not is genuinely higher quality.
Now, somebody, Dr. Jenks says, well, I'll explain this to you. I already know the answer, but he said, can this dude make any book leather? Does he need special rights? Well, certain books are out of copyright and you can just,
Yeah,
certain movies are out of
anything out of
copyright. You can sell those too, or out
yeah
of
any anything out of
circulation.
copyright or anything where we have the permission of the copyright holder. So,
Yeah.
for example, we're doing a book called "Losing Military Supremacy," which is written by a really excellent Russian analyst, Andrei Martynov. And yeah, that book was published only in 2018, but his publisher was happy to let us get the rights to it. So we're doing that. We try to mix it up. For we've got 2 different subscriptions. One is the library, which can be anything,
Yeah.
and then the other one is history, where we've done the landmark Thucydides, which is about the old Athenian Spartan War. We did a 2-volume Cambridge medieval history. So just um, that subscription is actually growing fastest. People really like our history books.
It's funny. You're the second person within, I think, about a week to slap me down. I always mention Wuthering Heights. And then I had a female guest on that night, and she goes, "Well, I like Jane Eyre better." Well, like, Jane Eyre's more famous too, though. So if I was trying to sell books, I'd probably pick Jane Eyre too, right?
Hey, I'm not slapping you down. We're gonna do Wuthering Heights. It's just that my right hand woman is this very posh British lady. Did you ever see the show Unstable?
I have not actually.
If you ever see the show Unstable, the woman who is Rob Lowe's right hand woman basically is her, like right down to the hair and the accent, and they have the same accent and pretty much the same personality. And so, you know, when she says she wants to do Jane Eyre, we do Jane Eyre.
I understand. Now, before we get into
Milo,
First of all, Wuthering Heights is the greatest novel in the English language.
Yes!
The most admired, most handsome, most beloved male sex symbol in all of literature. Heathcliff is, by common consent, the most attracted man in the entire English literary canon. So skip it. It is the most innovative and complex for its time.
Yes.
With those eddies and currents of like little time travel situation at the end. Like, it's an amazing, incredible novel. It should be. Sorry, that's me, isn't it? It should be at the top of any list. You can't call me now asking what.
Okay, so I guess you won that one, Ethan.
Milo backing me up is like amazing, though. I have to say, and we'll get him back in a sec because that is my feeling. It should be required reading.
Sorry, just censored TV up to our usual standard of excellence. So just calling me on air. What's the link? Nice to see you, my friend Vox. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Yourself?
Well, not okay, to be honest with you. I was planning to be about 15 to 20 minutes late, and then when I heard that absolute baloney about Wuthering Heights,
Jane Eyre compared to Wuthering Heights, dude? Are you serious?
I wasn't denigrating Wuthering Heights. I was just simply explaining the order that the books we were doing.
That says not within your power to denigrate Wuthering Heights. I am appalled. I'm shocked. I'm horrified. I'm going to go and make sure before we start off on our extravaganza that the restream, that
everything's working on censored.
It's working properly on the censored side. I kind of threw this at them at the last minute. Actually, it's probably half my fault. So we just make sure we're being broadcast everywhere we're supposed to be.
Go ahead,
and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, folks?
All right, that's awesome.
Just 1 second. Excuse me.
And thank you for jumping in to defend my take on Wuthering Heights.
Now I'm afraid to bring up any other books.
Well, I read Jane Eyre when I was on my state-sponsored vacation as well, and it's a good book. But like, I don't know. It's something about Wuthering Heights. It just connects.
I'm not the fan. I'm not the fan.
The setting is like a character, too. You know what I mean? Like the actual environment is like its own character in the book. Like, and Heathcliff, of course, like he mentioned, is kind of a son of a bitch, but also a complicated character. But Jane Eyre's good too. I don't want to, and it's way more. I think it's more well known. So if you're trying to sell more books,
the thing that was great about doing the Pride and Prejudice was that it's got this really classic cover by Hugh Thompson, and who does all the illustrations in it. It's called the Peacock Edition. So we went out and got a first edition and scanned it, but we improved upon the layout considerably. And then it's just absolutely beautiful in the gold on the green with the peacock feathers and all that sort of thing. It turned out it's probably, other than the Divine Comedy, I think it's probably our prettiest book. So
now, where can you buy all these amazing books?
If you just go to CastaliaLibrary.com, there's a link. It shows you all the books. The best way to follow us is actually on our Substack, which there's a link at CastaliaLibrary.com. And then we basically have either subscription. So most of our books get sold before they even get made. And then we always make a few extras so that people who don't subscribe to them can buy one off, two offs.
Yeah. Very cool. Now, Milo's not back just yet, but talk about Gamergate a little bit. And first off, talk about your involvement with it. And thank you for the shout out in the book that you wrote. I believe it was called SJWs Always Lie, if I'm correct. And I got a very nice shout out from you. So thank you for that here live on air. But talk about your involvement in Gamergate.
Well, I was actually involved with Gamergate before it was called Gamergate. And as you're probably aware, I used to be a game journalist myself. And so I was a nationally syndicated game reviewer for Chronicle Features, and my game review column appeared in 13 newspapers around the country: Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Boston Globe, San Jose Mercury News. I also wrote for Computer Gaming World and also for Electronic Entertainment. And so I was not a game journalist at the time, because obviously I'd moved into game development after being involved in as a game journalist, but I still knew a lot of the game journalists, the old school guys. And because of that, I was aware of the existence of Game Journal Pros. And
explain what that is for those who don't know. I know what it is. Well, you know what? Okay. I'll explain it. How about this? Since I guess you know what? I won't be a lazy host. Game Journal Pros was like an insider email list that they all communicated and kind of tailored their message to. Right? I'm right on that.
Yeah, it was an imitation of Journalist, which was
you're right, Journalist. Yeah,
it was called Journalist. And that was a bunch of New York Times columnists and pretty high-level columnists all around the country. And it was a whisper network. And so they would kind of decide what stories they would emphasize and push and which ones they would kill. Yep. And so if you ever wondered, does the media just all happen to sound the same? The answer is no. It's because, when the journalists themselves aren't talking, the editors are, But anyhow, the Game Journal Pros was a imitation of a journalist by a bunch of journalists who were writing for the different game magazines and game sites. And of course, they were all politically aligned. They were all a bunch of left-wing SJWs. And so at the time that the whole news broke about literally who, that stupid Depression Quest game, which wasn't even a game. Anyhow, for some reason, they decided that they needed to circle the wagons. And so they all got together and came up with this, are gamers dead, or is gaming dead? It was just the dumbest line to try to push. I don't even really understand what the point of it was. But not everybody who was on the Game Journal Pros list was actually sympathetic to what they were doing. And so, there was a certain individual who I will not name, since he's never been identified and never chosen to reveal himself. But he's the Gamergater number one, and
I got a guess, but I won't say it on air. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's not necessarily the kind of person that you would assume.
That I would think.
Just put it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
You wouldn't necessarily assume it.
Okay.
All I'll say is that it was not me. And like I said, remember, I have contacts in both the mainstream media and the gaming media that go back to 1992. So anyhow, this particular individual is the one who leaked that list, and I don't remember if it was directly to Milo or if it was to someone at Breitbart, or I don't even remember who put it out there, but I was aware of it before it even got released to the media. And so, and obviously I was 100% opposed to what the journalists were doing. I think you can look up on my blog back in, whatever it was, August or whatever. It was before, I wrote about it like once or twice before it kind of popped, before what was his name? The Firefly actor called
Adam Baldwin.
Yeah, Adam Baldwin. It was before Adam Baldwin did that. And then of course, once he did that, then it all just, went ballistic. And, there's a broad spectrum of people. Like, we're all 10 years older. Maybe some of us have gotten a bit more conservative or moved a bit more to the right or whatever. But one of the interesting things about Gamergate, and one of the lies that's often told about it, is that Gamergate was incredibly diverse politically and ideologically. You know, it's truly about gamers. You know, I'm a gamer myself. I've been a gamer since I was 8, you know, playing on my Mattel Intellivision and my Apple II. And it was really fascinating to see how a lot of very, very disparate and very different people got together, because all of us intrinsically understood that what the game journalists were doing was a bad thing for everybody. You know, it wasn't good for the game companies. It wasn't good for the gamers. It wasn't good for the quality of the games itself. They were just a relatively small clique of people who happened to have a lot of power and a lot of influence. Well, not power. They had a lot of influence, and it had a big microphone. And of course, they managed to get the mainstream media to take their side and accept their false narrative.
Yeah, and it ended up not being good for them either.
No, I mean, half the sites that were our biggest, you know, shut up and email targets and whatever are gone.
Yeah,
they're all dead. You know, and I mean, you know, people have said, "Oh, Gamergate lost because of what's happening in the game industry," and there's probably some truth to that. You know, all this like sweet baby bullshit and that sort of thing. But the reality is that there's still a ton of good games being developed. It's just that it's now the game industry has almost gotten back to its roots where it was when I first got into it, because people are developing games, you know, with like there's 3 friends, or you know, they're doing smaller games and they don't have the fancy graphics and all, but they focus on the gameplay, which I've been arguing since I was, you know, writing for Develop Magazine, should be the focus of even the AAA games anyhow.
Well, yeah, and AAA, you know, of course I don't get as much time. I say this all the time. I don't get as much time to play games as I used to when I was a NEET, I guess you could say, and growing up, and you know, even in college, you know, it would be no stretch for me to play 6 to 8 or more hours a day of video games, right? So I just don't have that much time anymore. But you know, also I think there's not a lot of excitement out there. Like I don't really see that many games anymore where I'm like, I have to play that. Of course, Grand Theft Auto 6, yeah, I have to play that. You know, there's certain series I've been with my whole life. Yeah, I have to play that. You know, I played a little bit of Mario Wonder and stuff like that. But you know, there's just not a lot that grabs me anymore, where it's like, you know, I got to set aside time out of the day. The last game I beat fully was Ghost of Tsushima, and before that it was Red Dead Redemption 2. So like fully beat. Now I played games since then. I played plenty of games since then, but like fully completed all the way through, which is kind of like my measure of a not necessarily a quality game, but one that I really cared about, right? That I wanted to finish and see the end. Do you feel the same way about things not really grabbing like they used to?
Well, yeah, I'm a bit older than you are, so I kind of went through that about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, these days, I mean, honestly, right before I came on here, you know, I was playing around with Suno, doing a vampire theme song for our vampire comic, Midnight's World. You know, these days, I am working on one game project. It's just a small one, just working with one programmer. You know, it's kind of a network battleground type game that's completely, totally, and utterly focused on the gameplay experience that I most wanted to recapture and share with people. And so, but you know what, having been a game designer on and off since, you know, 1995 or whatever, I've always kind of gravitated more towards working on design than playing. I mostly play games now to study the mechanics, you know, see if there's any new tricks that I want to pay attention to. But, you know, I've been very disappointed overall with the general direction of the gaming industry, because they've gone in the direction that I always thought was foolish, which is focusing primarily on the graphics and then also continually dumbing down the gameplay.
Yes.
You know, I think Fortnite is probably the most cynical game design I've ever seen in my life. You know, that was literally the game designers throwing up their hands and saying, you know what, if you all want to run around like a bunch of chickens with your heads cut off shooting at each other, go for it. And massive success. You know,
it worked.
Well, on the one hand, you can't argue with it in terms of they made money, right?
But they're killing the genre, like, you know, right, what I mean, long term. Yeah,
you have it's kind of like rap is musically. You know, Prince experimented with rap a little bit back in the Diamond and Pearls kind of era.
Sure.
And the reason that he quit, other than the fact that he was bad at it, but he could bring in anybody to join his band, right?
Well, he was Prince. The reason, like, yeah, of course.
But, he could bring but the reason that he dropped it was because he understood it had nowhere to go. That, you know, there's, whether you like it or not is irrelevant. The point is, you know, rap today is no more advanced musically than it was when Chuck D was, you know, doing you know, Fear of a Black Planet or even before. And so in the game world, in the game industry, you see much the same thing, where once you just throw up your hands and say, okay, here, just run around and try to kill each other, where do you go? How do you provide a fundamentally different gameplay experience that lets you feel differently, play differently, enmesh you into a storyline? And the other problem is that all the money involved meant that all these people who don't give a damn about games and never did and don't understand anything about them got involved. And so that's why we see all this storyline nonsense and just roller coaster ride the story, because they're not gamers, they're writers.
It's true. And you mentioned gameplay. Of course, I've always been a huge Nintendo fan. When I was growing up, not that Sega wasn't awesome, but I had a regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and 64. I was like the Nintendo guy. My friend had the Sega, so I go across the street and play Sega sometimes. But I was a Nintendo guy. In terms of gameplay, is there anything, like, I always feel like I get something new out of a Nintendo game, even if it's a Mario, you know, platformer or whatever, some new little mechanic, some new little, wrinkle that I can mess around with.
Nintendo and Blizzard both shared a trait, which was they really focused on polishing and perfecting the experience. You know, Sega was better if you wanted a broader range of experiences. You know, I was a Sega of America developer.
Really?
During the Dreamcast. Yeah, we were supposed to do.
I got Dreamcast $99.99, by the way, the day that it came out.
$1 on Rumble.
So
Sega Genesis slays Gash.
I was a launch. I was the lead designer on a launch title. It was an RPG, and the guy who created the Elder Scrolls series had left Bethesda and joined us to do it. And it was going to be a great game. We actually acquired the Traveler rights, Traveler RPG, and so we're using that as the basis. We're one of the 10 launch titles for Sega of America for the Dreamcast, which was back then was called the Katana. And then one day we get a phone call from our executive producer. He's like, yeah, I got bad news. The whole thing's canceled. And we're like, they canceled the title? And I said, no, Sega actually canceled all Sega of America development. So that was a bit of a bummer, but they paid us well, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I remember that day, and man, I was such a big Dreamcast supporter. It's crazy. And then not all my friends, but some of them were like, nah, just wait. PS2 is coming down the line. I'm like, nah, man, this is killer. I'm getting this day one. And I think I got, I forget the name of the Sonic game, but I got Sonic, Soul Calibur,
Panzer Dragoon.
Yes, Panzer Dragoon. And then I also got NBA wasn't out yet. I don't think NBA 2K had come out yet, but NFL 2K had come out right away. And it was by far, it was like the Madden killer. I mean, it was just amazing right off Jump Street. So those were the games that I got for my Dreamcast. And the MTV Music Awards were the same night. I remember that night very well. And I didn't know that you had a part to do with that. So that's pretty fucking cool. Now, Gamergate in terms of, and by the way, Milo is going to come back. He's just checking the stuff on the sensor. Yeah, he's still here. He never left. He's checking the tech, making sure everything's working. He had to come defend Wuthering Heights, which I do appreciate. What do you think is the like lasting? Could take it. Well, the internet is culture. Cultural impact of Gamergate.
Well, the cultural impact of Gamergate, as far as I'm concerned, is it really established the effectiveness of memes as visual rhetoric that was able to influence large numbers of people. I mean, to this day, I apply some of the lessons that that we learned together in Gamergate. You know, for example, you're probably, or you may or may not be aware, but there's a big scandal with Neil Gaiman going on right now in the science fiction fantasy world.
I've vaguely heard about it, but you would have to break it down a little bit more.
Give us a quick précis of what's going on there, because I haven't followed any of it. If I had to guess, you are probably watching this with no small amount of relish. If I had to guess, but give us a quick kind of. I mean, it's the kind of person, Neil Gaiman, okay, sort of middlingly talented, obviously a rapist. I'm kidding, but you know, just sort of clearly one of those
allegedly,
clearly one of those liberal guys. I mean, you know, sort of start the clock on the charge. You know. Male feminist type. Give us a quick précis of what that's all about at the moment, and because most people don't know, and then I have some questions about the Gamergate culture too.
Sure. So Neil Gaiman in the science fiction and fantasy world is one of the biggest things out there, and you know he's much beloved by the sort of goth crowd. He's got a lot of crossover because he started in comics and then he moved to books, although he hasn't really written anything in 10 years. He's got a massive reputation. He's won every award in the business. A lot of his stuff is now being converted into movies and Netflix TV shows.
TV shows. I remember seeing the American Gods, which wasn't very good, but it was obviously very expensive.
But Coraline, which is based on a short novella that he wrote, I think that just crossed 100 million with its re-release just this week. So he's bigger than most people realize, although the mainstream is not as familiar with him. But he's worshipped in the SF&F crowd. And the more successful, bigger name writers like John Scalzi and stuff, they all look up to him. You know, they all want to be him. However, Milo is absolutely correct, as Milo usually is. And he is a mediocre talent. That's a little bit harsh. He's very modestly talented.
Wow, you really upgraded him there. Yeah.
No, I just remember the wording of Vox's headline on his blog earlier today. I couldn't remember it.
So he's very modestly talented, but he's a rip-off artist. So, but you know, he steals from every myth and every legend and every fairy tale, and he does exactly the same thing with it every single time. And there's always major themes of sexual abuse. There's always these 15 to 16-year-old girls who are super attractive. You know, in my Sigma game parlance, you know, he's a gamma who really portrays things from that sort of perspective. And the thing is, if you've read his stuff, if you're at all familiar with his stuff, then you know that the guy is iffy. You know, he's the sort of person, like Milo said, if you've read his stuff, then there's absolutely no surprise that there would be some kind of scandal at some point in time.
There is, because the extent to which he lingers on things like you mentioned, like, you know, the young attractive girls and things like that. He pays so much more attention to the fine-tuning, to the tones and the color and the feeling of these characters than he does, for instance, coherence of the plot. He's a little bit like a magpie, really, the birds that kind of fly around and pick up bits of gold foil and take them back to the nest. And she gets so much gold foil in the nest that they push out their own eggs because they're so, you know.
Right.
But the stitching together of all these disparate parts leads the stories sometimes to just be so discordant and confused. But the one thing he does take an enormous degree of time, attention, and care over is the painting of these young female characters, right?
Yeah, I mean, he'll always devote just an alarming amount of attention. Whenever he's describing a woman, he'll almost always make sure to describe the shape of her breasts. And even if she's 14.
No.
And
so I was shaking my head yes at first, and then I was like, oh no, never mind.
Yeah, and so
hearing kind of pros sometimes,
So what happened? So I've always thought he was overrated, and this I'm not just saying this now because he's no longer in favor. I wrote about this back in 2018 when we first got into comics, and people said, "Oh, you have to read Sandman, you have to read Sandman, you have to read Gaiman," and I did, and I was like, "Okay, if this is the best that they can do, we can do better," And so, whether we've done that or not is irrelevant. The point is that I was not impressed coming to it cold, not knowing anything about it. So anyhow, recently, but actually beginning of July, a company called Tortoise Media put out 2 podcasts, and then they've put out 4 more since then, and 7 women have come forward publicly from dating back to 1986 and as recently as 2022, accusing him of some form of sexual assault. So a lot hasn't come. There's a lot more to come out. I'm highly confident. People who do this kind of thing tend to make a habit of it, and because he had this sort of rock star status in this very small world of book tours and book signings. I personally think the over under is probably going to be around 50.
Jesus.
So far they're at 7, and it's confirmed that he has paid out money to 3 different women. I don't remember what the third woman was, but the first 2 it comes to, I think, $310,000 he'd paid out to the 2 women.
It's not a great sign when someone's already paid out settlements. But there's also something else. Talk about harassment in fantasy, sci-fi, video games. There's something of an operation, isn't there? A defense operation that's going on. That seems to be quite sophisticated and a little bit dark. It's going on his behalf.
100%.
Seeking to undermine the testimony of these women, and it is frankly, it's Clintonian. The extent to which they're seeking to undermine and discredit some of these women. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, it just came out today that he had been contacting his friends and colleagues and sending them copies of the emails that he had gotten from some of these girls. And he's very manipulative. A lot of people don't know it, but not only is he practically Scientology royalty, but he was actually an auditor himself. You didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't. He's all like level 20 Xeno'd up, is he?
Well, here's the thing. This is just conjecture. Let's make it very clear. This is just conjecture. But I was noticing that they were talking about somebody had put an ad out, probably this PR agency that he's hired. They put some ad out, and they're trying to talk fluff about him, and they're talking about how he's sold 50 million books. And I'm thinking, 50 million books is an awful lot of books to have sold for books that are not really very good, but they're also not like, Katie Price, buy it at the, ghost-written stuff. And so I was thinking, how is this ringing a bell? And they talked about all the bestsellers. And then I suddenly remembered L. Ron Hubbard sold 93 million books in the science fiction space, mostly with Dianetics and Battlefield Earth, had 22 bestsellers, et cetera, because the Scientologists were buying all the books.
Oh, do you like the bulk buy stuff?
Yeah, so I don't know that that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if there turned out to be some connection between his amazing bestseller success and his connections.
That's amazing. Yeah. Scientology is propping up all the sales. I remember being absolutely mystified as to how Joy Villa, who was briefly a MAGA celebrity, the one who wore the dress to the Golden Globe, was right. How she could possibly be a thing. I was just obviously talentless, terrible production, most of it, and she apparently had some kind of record sales until I met with her for lunch at Trump Doral, and it turned out she was like really high in Scientology, and her Swedish boyfriend or husband or whatever, it was like, level 10, blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah. Scientology does this. They invent people. They create and then just basically pay their way into creating, these like the Wilkes brothers, like a lot of
right.
way people manufacture on the right. So that is so interesting. That is so.
Yeah. So here's where we tie it back to Gamergate is there's this huge wall of silence that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody will talk about it. Even the people who claim to have talked about, like John Scalzi, for example, says nothing. He wrote a 3,600 page piece or 3,600 word piece that mentioned the words Neil Gaiman once and spent the whole time telling people that they shouldn't idolize him, which frankly I don't think is a problem. I'm pretty sure that nobody is particularly interested in being like a tubby little 5'4", 50 something writer with the sex appeal of a retarded snail.
Who's got that sort of libidinous, licentious, creepy kind of
soft
and some kind of race thing too. Like the way he talks about black people is like a little bit creepy, just saying, a little bit much. Like, certainly the manifestations of that in the TV adaptations have been a little bit black, scrolling, a little bit too nice.
So anyhow, I realized that the only way that you can get past this wall of silence is memes. We know this. And so, in fact, if you guys want to check it out on Reddit, believe it or not, I have an account on Reddit, it turned out, dating back to 2013, probably connected to Gamergate, in fact. In fact, it was connected to Gamergate. I didn't ask me anything with like the left side, like the left side of Gamergate. They wanted to ask me a bunch of questions. So that's how I had the account. Anyhow, I created a subreddit called Neil Gaiman memes. So if anybody's interested, there's 190 people there, and they just crank out like every day. There's 5 new Neil Gaiman memes. Some of them are hilarious. There's like quotes. There's a great. My personal favorite one is there's one of an obvious. It's Neil Gaiman in a forest, and he's leaning over with his hand extended to Little Red Riding Hood, and she's looking up at him, and it says, "No matter how rich, no matter how famous, you are still a creep." and it's so effective. It's so effective that the SJWs they weren't allowed on the Neil Gaiman Reddit. They weren't allowed to say anything about the allegations or anything about the scandals. Obviously. And so a bunch of them created their own Neil Gaiman Uncovered thing in order to cover that. Well, they didn't want to let us put anything there because our stuff is too hard-hitting and direct and brutal, and because we're too evil and right-wing and all that sort of thing. So they actually have a rule. One of their main rules on this thing that is devoted to exposing Gaiman is no posting memes from Neil Gaiman memes. But that's how effective the visual rhetoric can be. I mean, we all remember from the 2016 election, the way that the Trump memes really adjusted people's thinking. You could see the rhetoric that was being utilized by the Democrats at the time was they were trying to counter the memes. They weren't even paying attention to what the campaign was saying.
There's no way really when a truth is encapsulated in a poignant, funny, hard-hitting, memorable visual way. There's really no defense against that. There's no card you can play. There's no die you can roll to defend against that kind of attack. It just hits, and once you're done, you're done. It's like something that really just lands. It sticks with you. Have you noticed though that that ability that it seemed like the right had coming off Gamergate in 2014-15 and into the election in 2016 seems now to have metastasized into something more like kind of cringe boomer memes on Truth Social. Like, it doesn't seem like anybody really has like the meme magic anymore, does it?
No, I totally disagree. I just think that it is not necessarily focused on the political because of the general disappointment with the way that the Trump presidency turned out. Don't get me wrong. I will assert gladly that Trump was the greatest U.S. president since Andrew Jackson. But the degree of difficulty that he was facing was just historical and beyond him at the time. And whether he'll get the chance to rectify the situation, whether I have no idea. I'm not interested in getting into that aspect of things. But what I will say is that I've seen. Actually, Milo, we do this thing on Unauthorized TV on my dark stream every now and then. It's called Weekly Meme Review, which is kind of a joke because it's definitely not weekly. But everybody sends in one meme. Maybe they can make it, they can just find it somewhere. And it's been really interesting to see how there are great memes out there and how people can really learn to improve their art of meme magic and so forth. I mean, for example, think about that meme with the Ron Paul. It's got the old it's got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's got the mouse, their mouse sensei when he's young, and the turtles are little, and he's walking with them with his arms around them, and then it says Ron Paul and like young Republicans or something like that, and then it shows the old and aged and bowed mouse sensei walking with the 4 turtles who are young and strong and have their weapons, and they've got their arms around him, and it says it says Ron Paul and the alt-right, whatever it was. I mean, that is a phenomenal meme. I mean, I've seen phenomenal memes related to Russia and Ukraine, related to the Middle East. There's really great meme magic out there. It's just things have gotten so the opposite of distilled. They've gotten so unconcentrated now because we're not all on Twitter anymore.
I just want to say something real quick. It feels like Kamala, honestly, and I don't like Kamala Harris at all, but it feels like her team has been more adept at throwing Trump off of his game. At least until the last week or so, maybe, with their really catty responses and their press releases that are basically like comedy sketches.
It's the first campaign that's written, authored, signed off, and sent exclusively by 20-year-olds.
Yes,
National,
federal, presidential campaign that where the final say is a 25-year-old who thinks it's funny for sure.
Because Kamala has nothing to do with any of it. I mean, she doesn't follow.
Well, no,
of
course
she doesn't
not.
know.
No.
But I think that but even there, what they're doing there is to a certain extent an echo of Gamergate.
Yeah.
Because what everybody is developing, I mean, I won't say that obviously not everybody understands it, but all of the professionals now have a better understanding of what rhetoric is and how it can be most effectively utilized. They're not trying to engage in these long, tedious, dialectical discourses about the economy. But, they know it doesn't make any difference. I mean, how can you even talk with a straight face about what we should do about the economy and say, no, we need to talk about what tax rate should be, when all of us know that they're just sending tens of billions to Ukraine and Israel and other foreign countries? I mean, how can you even have a discussion about that? That's not an economic issue in the first place.
Let's talk about art for a little bit. You're a great lover of art, despite your terrible taste in Victorian novels. And I know that Ralph on the DL has quite an extraordinary library of things that he likes. So he's a bit of a
I'm an art museum guy. Yeah.
Sleeper agent.
Yes. You wouldn't expect it, but I've been to the Vatican and Prado and Royal Museum.
I know you've done it all
British Museum. Yeah.
Let me ask you both the effect on art of that particular moment in culture. I mean, you could start with the effect on video games, but the effect on art, on artistic product generally, from that period where suddenly this new kind of visual communication became the way to win arguments, the way to persuade, the way to guide and direct. Have you seen? I mean, obviously, that kind of visual medium, I guess, the closest art form that we know to that would just be something like comic books. But have you seen an effect on art of any kind, literature, whatever, of the fact that it was almost like the whole world was speaking in memes for about a year and a half, 2 years, right, at that time, from Gamergate into the Trump presidency. It was like this is the primary means through which people communicated dissatisfaction, joy, frustration, disagreement. Have you seen an effect on artistic product in any field as a result of that.
The biggest change that I've seen is that the effectiveness of Gamergate's ability to influence the national narrative and its ability to withstand the full power, the full concentrated power of the global media. I think it frightened the people who are used to controlling the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that there's a connection between that and the degradation of art and story and everything that we've seen in every artistic medium, from comics to movies to games. If you look at what they're doing, the way that they are methodically destroying every piece of intellectual property they can get their hands on, from the Wheel of Time to Tolkien.
Just after that, didn't it?
I believe all of that destruction and all of that trashing of the kind of art that we value in popular culture is because they don't want to give us the ability to develop our own narratives. They want to destroy our old stories. Right. And now that's not going to work. I mean, I don't know if you can see that book right behind me. That's a 750-page epic fantasy that I just published a couple weeks ago. We're going to continue to tell our stories. And not only that, but the one thing that they don't understand is that we have the ability to jujitsu everything they do. I mean, for example, when the Rings of Power came, I haven't seen the Rings of Power. I'm a huge Tolkien fan. I've been to the Tolkien.
It's a spin-off of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So I'm a huge Tolkien fan. Massive influence. I mean, I write epic fantasy. Obviously, is a huge influence on me. I've been to the Tolkien Museum in Switzerland. I have a third edition of The Hobbit, et cetera, et cetera. I've never seen the Rings of Power, and I knew it was going to be terrible because of obviously the people involved. And so we actually recorded, my band Booster Patrol actually recorded a song called "The Rings of Power" and it's a remake of the Johnny Cash song. And if you can look it up on YouTube, the video is hilarious. The song is funny. Anything that they make, this is what they didn't understand. They thought that, well, we can't allow them to affect the narrative, so we need to clamp down and control everything. So we're going to make sure that we're going to make the games, and we're going to make the comics, and we're going to stick our SJW bullshit. We're going to destroy the very concepts of truth and beauty and good. But what they didn't realize is that we can jujitsu them every single time. I mean, some of the greatest memes that are out there, I love what they call orc posting. The stuff like where it's got Gandalf at the gate, and they say, King Denethor, the orcs are at the gate, and he says, well, don't be a racist, let them in.
Yeah.
We can do that too. I mean, there's tons of, I've never seen the Rings of Power, but I know a fair amount about it just from all the memes I've seen using their art for our purposes.
I certainly recognize that precipitous decline, or rapid acceleration, however you want to put it, of the vandalism, the destruction of those beloved franchises after, I guess, 2015-16. Trump's in, and since then, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, like a thick and fast, hot and heavy, are coming these what seem like deliberate destructive acts towards IP that is appeals especially to, I guess, to white men, or especially to whatever group they the most today. And it's interesting that you may be right about that. This is another consequence of Gamergate. That if they can't have a stranglehold on the dialogue around and the production of, they'll just kill it instead. And certainly it does look like if you wanted to sour the relationship between Star Wars and Star Wars fans, you want to sour the relationship between the Tolkien estate and its intellectual products and fans, you do what they're doing, right? You would create these terrible things that make people go, oh, well, Star Wars used to be good. To kill. I hadn't really thought about that. That's interesting.
And it's not an accident that, for example, Conan has survived, despite the fact that Conan, you would think that they would, absolutely want to destroy him. But the reason Conan has survived is because Conan's got probably the best intellectual protection team, and has had for the last 60 years. We inadvertently trod upon their toes, thinking that Conan was now public domain, and we jumped the gun by about 9 years. And it was kind of funny because we're used to being what's the best way to put it? Legally formidable. We've got and it was funny because I was talking to their lawyers, and you could tell the guy was really smart and really knew his stuff. And it was funny because as I'm explaining to him why I felt we had the right to publish the books that we did with Chuck Dixon, he came out, he smiled a little bit. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I'm going to get a surprise here.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he explained to me, he said, look, just so you know, we now understand that you didn't intend any harm. But we do have to resolve the problem. He said, here's what you're missing. You would be correct about just about every other intellectual property out there. However, this happens to be the only one that actually filed, our predecessors filed renewals back in the 50s and the 70s, unlike everybody else.
Right, so they have still the same protections that were published yesterday.
So, yeah, their protections for that particular, those particular works don't extend 70 years beyond the life of the author, but like 100.
Yep.
And so it was a very good learning experience for me, which is sometimes the other side's lawyers are really good. And we worked out a great. It was. I mean, I think they're great. We worked out a thing that worked fine. We can't publish it anymore, but they took it over. They're going to publish it, and it's all cool. But Conan, because Conan's being controlled by the same people who have protected it very carefully for all this time. That's why the new Conan that came out recently, from Titan Comics, is good. I mean, it's proper Conan.
Right.
Whereas the stuff that we're seeing Disney, of course Disney is. I mean, I refer to them as the devil mouse. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're a bunch of Satanists who want to see the world burn, and they're clearly destroying everything they can get their hands on. They did it with Star Wars.
Used to be good.
Yeah.
The morals used to be great. Little Mermaid, if you wanted to fall in love with you, shut the fuck up. There used to be some good morals to Disney movies.
No question, but that's just another thing that's been taken away from us. And so, one of the things that I am seeking to do, and the team is seeking to do at Castalia Library and at Castalia House and Archaven Comics and Archaven Arctoons, is we're trying to do things that are not just good stories with great characters, but also to recapture some of that sense of the good, the beautiful, and the true where we can. Now, we don't always. I mean, let's face it. My vampire comic is a bit maybe too dark at times, but the point is that it's up to us to reclaim the culture. It's up to us to reclaim the art. That's what Gamergate is all about. One of the most important lessons of Gamergate, in my opinion, was the phrase, "I'm the leader of Gamergate, and so can you."
Right.
I mean, my whole community has absorbed that. They all think that way. I mean, it's funny. We have a kind of a little private Twitter type thing just for the community, and you'll never see somebody saying, "Gee, it'd be a really good idea if somebody would do X," because they know that the next 20 things that they're going to see are great. Go do it.
Do it. Yeah. And it's precisely that philosophy that made it both that meant that the energy of it could dovetail neatly into the Trump campaign, right? Because there's no one person with the direction, with the kind of prescriptive vision of where this should go. It's if everybody, if there's a loose coalition of people who all believe in fundamentally the same thing, you have this sort of a nebulous kind of collective of energy that can lend itself to things, right? And when it lends itself to a political project, a political campaign, a Trump campaign, it could do incredible things. And then I felt that the energy kind of dissipated, but you're saying to me that really it's just sort of retrenched back to where it belongs, and now it's kind of waiting in the wings to sort of to blossom out again, when most needed.
I think it will, and also I think that we're going to be more effective because of the tempering. We've all been. I mean, it's at the point now where, we still get deplatformed from various things with moderate regularity, and whereas it used to be the sort of thing that people would freak out about and get upset about, now it's just kind of like, okay, implement plan B, implement plan C. Just everybody's older, more experienced, but there's also the new breed, the Zoomers, who are coming in, who frankly are a little bit scary in that they just don't have some of the reservations and the mental blocks that we do. And sometimes they'll.
That's true.
When a
boomers. Go ahead. Sorry.
When a Zoomer meme comes in, it's either incoherent or scary.
Well, the Zoomers, I think, are the first generation that don't even have access to reliable information about what's been taken from them, right? They don't even have a way to find out what's been lost. I mean, you could say about, millennials at least caught snatches of the way the world used to be, whether it was the parish fete or courtship or dances, the world of chivalry and restraint and those Christian values that basically made the West a nice place to live. They don't. I mean, the Zoomers are recreating what they intuit they have lost. I mean, you see, like when you see, for instance, they were all kind of getting dressed up in suits to go and see the new Minions movie, right? It's like they're creating this peculiar simulacrum, this like sort of weird, sort of ritualized imitation of something vaguely like what they ought to be doing and would have been 100 years ago, without really having any idea what it is or what it was. So you see these strange echoes of behavior from the past, but they have no way of knowing what it was for or why it was doing it. So rather than it being about courtship or being about some kind of rite of passage or life event, it just becomes going to see a movie and they're going to dress up because something in them knows that they should be having these ritualized kind of social occasions. They just have absolutely no idea what for or what they should look like.
Right, and they also don't pay any attention to our instinctive limits on things you shouldn't say about people and that sort of. I mean, like especially on racial matters, it can be a little bit mind-blowing because the things that we know you're not supposed to say and that sort of thing, they just come right out and say it with no none of that boomer instilled fear of, oh, I'm going to get punished for it, because the thing is that their experience is fundamentally different. You can't preach 1960s, 1970s era Martin Luther King aphorisms at them when they're outnumbered and getting beat up on the playground.
Nor do those kinds of aphorisms really hold true in 2024, no matter how old you are or what generation you are. It would be nice to aspire to those kind of values, but nobody else holds them, and I think they grow up in a world where that's obvious. So
exactly.
And although they perhaps don't know what they've lost, they do have a sense of a world that's so in crisis, and so consequences one way or the other, because life's going to be terrible no matter what happens. And I think perhaps that's the first generation that has grown up with despair as the default. I think millennials grew up with a lot of things to say and a lot of complaints. But there's something between either despair or just nihilism in the Zoomer generation where they have no real belief that anything is going to be better or get better, or no realistic prospects of having a happy life. They don't believe that they're ever going to get married or have children. I mean, they're not having sex, they're not drinking, they're not enjoying life at all. They're not enjoying anything.
But what's interesting though is that Stoicism does clearly appeal to them. I think that there is a subset of them that are becoming warriors of a sort that we never could, because we're too soft.
Yes, I think that's true. There's definitely an extent to which they are hardy, because they live anhedonic. They live without a thought to pleasure or comfort, because they don't have they don't have hope of a nice outcome for themselves. So yes, I think that feeds into what's terrifying about it.
I think we're both familiar with the concept of the way that hedonism does tend to be enervating at times.
Temporarily.
I'm familiar with that concept. It can be debilitating as well, but yeah. Go ahead.
Ethan, a lot of people didn't know that after Gamergate in Paris, Milo and Space Bunny and I and Cerno and his now wife, we all went out. Milo dragged us around the red light district in Paris till like 5 a.m.
That's a very unfair characterization of a very consensual evening.
It was. I have to say that was. I don't know that Space Bunny and I had laughed that hard for years.
I do remember some tomfoolery with hats and. Yeah, no, it was a good night. It was a good night.
And a photo shoot of a model in the fountain. There's a photo shoot going on, and Cerno's wife couldn't figure out why this woman kept taking her clothes off, because she didn't notice that there was a photo shoot in the fountain. She just saw this woman in a fur coat who would just like take her clothes off every few minutes. It was a good night.
That sounds like a good night, I have to say. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Ralph, of course, being the arch stoic among us.
Yes, of course.
The most disciplined and self-control. I bet something of an inspiration to me when it comes to saying no to things. Is reminding me that we have Mark Kern coming up. I would love for you to stay as long as you can, Box, but no pressure. But we have seriously, we have an apology from Mark Kern, Grunt, who cannot make it this evening. And from Shoe on Head, who cannot make it this evening. But we do have coming up. I think it's just about time, isn't it? Yes, it is just.
It's about that time. Yeah.
Somebody that I didn't know that well during Gamergate, but somebody who was very influential during it and was a great chronicler of what's going on, and that's Matt Jarbo, who you might know better as MundaneMatt.
Yes.
I think he's waiting in the wings. So please do stay as long as you can, Box. We'd love to have you for the whole show, or as much as you can stay. And then
it is 3 a.m. here, you know.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm being very.
Let me ask one question.
When you have to drop out, don't worry.
Yeah, he's coming in, but let me ask one question. I was just letting you guys. Obviously, you guys are great friends, so I just let you guys wrap there. No need for me to. They can hear me talk all the time. Yeah, I just let you two wrap. No need to step on any toes there. And I enjoyed the conversation a lot. But who do you think's the most reviled figure out of all of anti-Gamergate or Gamergate, if you prefer, Vox?
Well, I think we were all probably disappointed with how things turned out with Mercedes.
Well, that wasn't good. No,
that's a hell of a subject to come into.
Some people swear to me she's, dude. Some people still swear to me she's innocent, like, and they're like hardcore about it. And I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. It doesn't look good.
You mean you remember she was hot?
Yeah, but I'm like, dude, I don't think so, man. I think they got her. I remember I was at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, and somebody called me on the phone, speaking of museums, and they have a full-body Caligula statue, one of only 2 in the world, by the way. And
Ralph just drops these things in you never expect. I was in the Museum of Fine Arts. You're like, what?
And they're like, Mercedes Carrera and her husband just got busted for like, what was it, pimping out their daughter or something? I don't know. I forget what it was. Molestation with their daughter or something. I don't know. It was something terrible like that. And I almost dropped my phone. I was like, what the hell? Because she was actually
coming back from that moment for sure.
Yeah, she was actually on the first Killstream, which people don't know because I never say it. But back when we used to do it once a week.
You're responsible for all this.
Yeah. So not that. No.
In fairness, Matt, to explain, I was just before you came on, I was asked who was or is the most reviled member of Gamergate or anti-Gamergate, and that seemed to be the.
Too early. I was gonna say, what is coming on next?
Yeah. I mean, I'm both liked and hated in multiple fashions, so that's okay. That's all right. You kind of learn to live with it in this particular space. But the thing with Mercedes, though, real quick, she's been in jail for 4 years now.
Yeah, since I got that call.
Like, that's so weird to me.
Oh, no trial. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't know. So, yeah, I looked it up recently, and that's what I saw.
She always seemed like such a harmless sweetie.
You know, meth is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. That was before my first divorce, actually. When I got that call.
That's why Ralph's upset. He's like, fuck.
No, I never had any designs on that. She started fucking trannies and shit. I was like, no, I'm good.
I saw that that's been a thing now. I don't get it, but all right.
I'm good. Yeah, anyhow, I would say beyond that unfortunate situation, I mean, obviously, Milo was the primary target, and then to a lesser extent, the Mr. I'm spacing on the old name. But anyhow, what's that?
Mr. Medicare or Medicare, excuse me. Sorry, I had a slip of the tongue.
Yeah. Those were the two that the SJWs were most focused on, as far as I could tell.
Now, of all the people who I reached out to, and I said, listen, I don't want to hear any shit about who's mad with who's going to be feuds with who's up to the Sargon, who you'll see in the next hour, very graciously came on, although he and Ralph had words, and we had a beautiful moment earlier. We pre-recorded that segment, so you'll see that in the next hour. And a beautiful moment is like everyone else like, yeah, fine, water under the bridge. The only person that did not get a response from at all, I even got a response from Brianna Wu, who said,
wow.
I'm too busy to come on because I'm enjoying the Milo got fat arc on the internet too much. Okay, all right, fine. Let's talk about looks, shall we? It's like I just sent back the DVD cover for House of Wax.
I was just gonna say melted plastic.
The only living person looked like she's been in the oven for 4 hours on Gas Mark 6. The only person I did not get a response from about if you're on the Killstream was Jim. Was the internet.
I figured that.
It seems that the animosity runs just too deep on that one.
I mean, I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm here,
that's kind of what I would
fucking think. That's all I'm saying.
I was like, if Jarbo and Sargon are both gonna show up, you got to be a real coward not to show up, in my opinion. But of course, he said it best. We both hate each other. He said it about a month ago, and the sooner he dies, the better.
I went to his Twitter feed because I was thinking, well, maybe he tweeted at me a yes or a no about Fury.
No.
And it was just to see if shit about Ralph, and I was like, okay, I get this.
Yeah.
So anyway, Matt.
But why? I guess. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
No.
Oh no, there's lore there. It's pretty funny. So like, you need to know, then you should know. They don't like each other for a multitude of reasons.
I don't even have time to keep abreast of all the people who think they hate me. I don't even know who hates me. I like call people up and they're like, "What the fuck you got?" Oh, are we? Or I didn't know. I have no idea who hates me and who doesn't hate me. I can't even keep track of that, let alone anybody else's fights.
Space Bunny refuses to believe that anyone could possibly hate you.
Me too. I was like, no, it must just be because we haven't met yet, or it must be you got the wrong end of the stick. You could read the press coverage. Like I find it very difficult to believe anybody could possibly have any kind of animosity towards me whatsoever. But apparently they do. Anyway, let's give the floor to our new panelists. Matt, you were a great chronicler of what was going on, and one of the voices that people were one of the sort of omnipresent voices throughout this thing.
And the Zoe Quinn DMCA.
And yet I killed my own career through flagging. It's ironic. Fucking Alanis Morissette should write a goddamn song about it. That'd be great. I see the laugh, Ralph. I see the fucking laugh. It's okay.
You can't say you've killed your career when you have reached the dizzy heights of the Killstream 10-year Gamergate.
Right. It's true. There's 900 live right now and about 1,000 on Twitter or so. So yeah, it's not too bad.
Look, I'm completely fine with anything. It's been 6 years. I don't give much of a shit anymore. It's just fine.
So we spoke a bit about sort of cultural, artistic effects of Gamergate, and we'll hear a bit about the political ones when we hear from Sargon. But why don't you take us back just to the heady days of that particular internet war, and tell us a bit about what it was like for people who weren't there on the front lines of this extraordinarily intimidating battle between a motley crew of a sort of ragtag Ghostbusters style crew, obviously not the remake, of people who sort of, half of them didn't even really like each other very much, but had a clear idea of who the bad guys were, and the ranked masses of the institutional, sort of feminist left. Like, how is it for you, kind of, because prior to this, a lot of people weren't very political. I don't know if perhaps you're one of them, like Sargon, not very political before this happened. And since that, lots of people become right wing. But how is it for you, kind of getting sucked into this this bewildering and intimidating battle, and what was it like at the time?
It was literally the craziest thing of my life. Like, there's just no other word for it. So I got the call from a friend of mine about the Zoe post on August 16th, 2014. She was like, you got to talk about this. This shit's going to blow up. And I was like, all right. And I read it. And I'm like, yo, this guy got fucking cucked, man. Holy shit. All right, I'll talk about it, because I didn't really care at the time. Like, I was like 9,000 subs. I was just talking about whatever. Then she DMCA's it. And then from there was also like all of like the Reddit thread deletions that were happening, or the Reddit comments, where she was working with Patrick Klepek from Giant Bomb at the time, and he was good friends with like the head moderator or one of the head moderators of our gaming on Reddit, and they were just deleting comments by the tens of thousands. Like, they were just that's what got the attention of like Total Biscuit. I think that's what got the attention of like Jim and a lot of other people. So that kind of kicked it off. And at first it was kind of like, I don't really know what the fuck is happening, because I'm trying to scramble to figure out like why I was DMCA'd and like what all that meant. But then it just kind of broke this dam, and everyone is all of a sudden like, you're the guy to talk to about this. And I'm like, I'm a fucking idiot, man. Like, I like gaming and fucking, I hate these people, but okay, and it just kind of went from there. It was like, the great thing about it was that my girlfriend was living in Oregon at the time, so I could dedicate all day, every day to like this. And that's what we did. There were people running 24-hour live streams back then. Like, all of this stuff was happening from across the board. And then, of course, as this ragtag team kind of came together, you would have your infighting, you'd have your threats, there'd be the accusations. There was a lot of crazy stuff in the fall of 2014. My personal favorite was a morning I woke up and King of Bull had said that I threatened to kill him, and then was holding a live stream about that. And the evidence that he showcased was someone else entirely. I wasn't even in the images that he was sharing, but yet somehow I was the person who was threatening to kill him.
It was that kind of atmosphere, wasn't it? Where people were just sort of getting very, very excited about things that actually hadn't quite happened.
I believe one person in particular's motto was "fuck being nice."
That was my motto, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of, a lot of like, you had all the SJWs and all the journalists, and they were all, circling the wagons around Zoe Quinn. And we know that from Milo's reporting, which kind of was a game changer, to be fair. Like, when that came into it, that was like, that kind of lit the fire that we were kind of on the right track. And then from there, what's kind of crazy, what made me think about it a lot recently, is the fact like Anita Sarkeesian is gone. Lee Alexander is gone. Zoe Quinn has been run off the internet after she effectively, accused someone of sexual assault. Then that guy,
is that what happened? Somebody today told me she hadn't tweeted in 2 years, and I was like, "What? I didn't even check in on her." And I was like, "Well, what the fuck happened?"
There was this other guy she had dated.
Her book sold about 400 copies. They had to pulp most of it.
Fun fact about that book is a friend of mine just got his teaching degree in Alabama, and they had to read that goddamn thing.
I don't know how, because you can't find it. It's out of print.
I don't know. All I know is we were talking about it, and he mentioned that his teacher was talking about a little blue skull guy, and I'm like, God damn it.
I think quite clearly they're circulating PDFs, because that book is long gone.
Anti-Gamergate certainly circulated a lot of PDFs. That's true. Now let me ask you, what's this sexual assault stuff? Wait, hold on, huh? What about Zoe Quinn?
Okay, so it's from what I remember. This was a couple years back. She had come out again, and she'd made the accusation that another one of the guys she dated, who was another game developer, had sexually assaulted her. And then like a couple days later, that dude killed himself.
Oh yes, okay, I remember this. Yeah, that blew it up.
Yeah. And when that happened, that was when you could see the shifting. No one protected her. Everyone went after her. Everyone told her to pound sand, and she just fucked off. Hopefully into a ditch somewhere. We could all be hopeful, but probably not.
The one I want to know about, the one that keeps me not up at night, obviously, but the one that I occasionally wonder about is Randy, little Randy. And I wonder, because she was the sort of the in some senses like the peripheral, but the craziest, and then the most sort of dedicated to others, and she was trying the sort of tragedy of little Randy was she was trying so desperately to become an establishment figure like Anita Sarkeesian, but she didn't quite have like the chops to be able to like navigate that world. So she was straddling, Me Too happened, and then Time's Up was for like the fashionable celebrities, and Me Too was kind of for the low rent Twitter feminists, and there were you got these celebrities kind of trying to straddle too. And this little Randy, I reported on her a couple of times, and it was just this perfect encapsulation of how the feminist side of the argument saw this as an opportunity for career advancement, and it was nothing really about no sincere love for the art, for games, for anything to for anything we're talking about, but they just scented an opportunity for professional advancement. And she was, she's just the most naked example of that. I wonder about her sometimes. I wonder if she's even still on the internet.
Her legacy. She wanted a legacy. She got one. To be honest with you, and that was the block bot or the block list.
Right.
The block list that we're all on. I found myself blocked by random people. I'm like, who the fuck is this? And then I'm like, oh yeah, the block list.
Journalism professor who ends up Jarvis or whatever thinks it's a good idea one day to use a block bot. So you find out that you're blocked by somebody who just cannot possibly ever have heard of who you are.
Something really funny is, speaking of that whole blocking thing or just guilt by association, is I literally saw this yesterday on Reddit. Somebody was banned from another subreddit because they had interacted on Kotaku in Action. 10 years later, and that shit's still going on. I don't get it. It's just, how the fuck is it still a thing 10 years later?
Yeah, I tried to look up some stuff about Hamburger Harper beforehand. I really couldn't find much.
How terrible.
I shouldn't have said that. I apologize.
So tell us how your life changed, Matt, as a result of Gamergate, because I feel like you're one of the people who got sucked in, became one of the big figures of it, and then when things, let's say, either fizzle out or become transmogrified into the meme magic of the Trump campaign, that's when I feel kind of maybe that you parted ways slightly, or just weren't
well, I mean, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm
right.
I'm a liberal, progressive, all that shit, right? Kamala 2024, baby, let's go. Anyway, but I was able to buy a house, and I have 2 beautiful daughters, and they're now 5 and 6, and they're going to school, and everything's good. I can't complain. I was able to work hard for what I was and get what I got. And then when everything went to shit, I still had that, and I can just rebuild off of that. And so it was wild in the beginning because I'd go out places and like people would see me in public and they'd come over like, oh my God, are you MundaneMatt? I'm just like, that's fucking weird. I still get that occasionally. Actually, I just had that a couple weeks ago at a military base. I drive a shuttle.
Why did you drop the name?
Because what happened 6 years ago? It was like I was kind of over the MundaneMatt name anyway.
Wait, what happened 6 years ago?
Oh, you fucking know. Zidane and James Allsip got me, and you just took the credit. That's what happened.
No, the Matt Noah is what made it iconic, though. See, that's what made it iconic.
Look at all them tabs. That was good too.
Yeah, that was good. Corden got that one. Yeah. Corden got that one.
Neither Milo nor I have any idea what you guys are talking about.
That's all right. That's okay. Shit. I done goofed is a good one, but then again, a lot of us here all have goofy moments.
That's true. Yes, yeah.
So moments that are chronicled on the internet forever.
Well, we'll leave it as an exercise for the reader then. But
sure, yeah. But no, it was just, the whole thing was crazy because it was like I never experienced anything like that before, and like you go to these events and people want to like get pictures with you and like sign shit, and it's fucking weird but cool at the same time. It is, well, if you're in a place where there's a lot of people, you went on a national tour for colleges like 8 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were getting a lot of that.
I lived on a bus. It was not fun.
No, I can only imagine. But anyway, yeah, that's basically about it. It was just kind of a life-altering thing, but
merged quite well from all this. You sort of you're solvent. You have a happy family. That's lovely. It's not everybody's experience.
It's like, don't get me wrong. Like when everything went to shit 6 years ago, I lost like 80% of my income. I lost a lot of the audience. People made wild accusations about me that weren't even remotely accurate, and I'm still dealing with that to this day. But I've been able to like move past it. Got a job that I really like. I can make a lot of money doing that. I have fun, and that's all that I care about.
Now, tell us a little bit about that. You have a podcast about Hollywood, something to do with Under the Cover or Behind the Scenes of Hollywood. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I started the show called Hollywood After Dark. The idea was to just kind of cover movie news.
I was close.
Yeah, you're close. But I just talk about movies. That's kind of the whole point. I've always loved that. I went to LA to work in the industry and everything else. I'm even working on a new movie right now on the side, and it's just, that's what I'm doing. So it's that's where I'd rather be than in a lot of this culture war stuff that I don't get a lot out of anymore. Like, I'm not the person that's going to be like that. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I wish we'd had the film company that we were working with talk to you. They're the ones who managed to get scammed of $1 million by some, Hollywood tied scam group that I think they're up to 330 million that they stole. The guy just got arrested again, like last week or something. But
a lot of Hollywood is really terrible. And like I don't miss not living there anymore. I love movies, I love all that stuff, but it's just it's a whole industry of have-nots looking for haves, and people just take advantage.
Yeah. I am familiar with the parasitism and the low moral constitution, low moral character of people in politics. I had no idea until I ran Yeezy for Kanye West. I had no idea how bad it was in entertainment. Just people just who glom onto these stars, persuade them that they're best friends, and end up being paid millions of dollars a year for doing nothing. Just extraordinary the way that people extract vast sums of money from people who don't really understand their finances. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. I mean,
well, when there's all that money at play, that ends up being the key factor, right? It's like, even look at YouTube. You know, how many people out there are trying to copy Mr. Beast because they think that's going to make them $1 million, when in reality they're not Mr. Beast and they're all going to fucking fail.
Well, and also Mr. Beast is like most people in his position. He's a ticket taker who's been propped up and is at least partially manufactured, you know.
Oh, 100%.
And we see this again. We see this again and again. And you know, I think that one thing that all of us in Gamergate experienced is that we all paid something of a price somehow. I mean, you know, I'm permanently banned from YouTube. I'm permanently banned from Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
Really, still?
Oh yeah.
I think I might be able to help with that, by the way.
Yeah.
But if they let Milo come back.
But I sent it like with YouTube after the whole after Susan Wojcicki died. They were saying, oh, you know, YouTube is opening up again, and you know, Judge Napolitano's back, and this. I thought, oh well, maybe I'll click on the review thing. I'd never even bothered asking them, you know, to review it, despite the fact that I had no strikes, hadn't done anything, and they sent back this thing saying, we've carefully reviewed your account and it's violated our community policy. And it was very convincing, except for one little thing. They sent it about 30 seconds after getting my review request.
I had the same thing.
Oh, wow.
I had the same thing.
I was like, wow, that was pretty quick there, guys.
And before I put my appeal in, just so people knew it wasn't reacted, before I put my appeal in, I when she died, I did an X article saying, "Is it okay to be glad when a poisonous old bitch dies?" It was a religious, it was a spiritual.
It reminds me of Hitchens' article after Reagan died. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
In the best tradition of my right heavens. No, but it was really an investigation as to, you know, to what extent you're allowed to, what you should. Yeah, anyway, so I did the appeal after that, and maybe that has something to do with that.
Yeah, I don't think they were ever going to let you on under any circumstances, no matter what. Because, like I said, you know, I mean, you and I have talked about the fact that most of the time they don't even understand what the hell I'm talking about. You know, they don't get offended. They don't get offended because, you know, I'm talking about, you know, one of the things that they banned me for was I was reading a section from the 1911 Cambridge Medieval History, and yeah, there was nothing offensive about it. It was just straight up history, and you know, because they didn't understand it, they seize upon those things and just kick you off. And whether it's for that reason or for another reason, like Matt's experience, whatever. I think one thing that all of we old Gamergate veterans share is the experience of being rejected by one or more elements of the mainstream because of the way that we successfully challenged the mainstream narrative.
Well, Matt's still there. I lost my channel, so I guess that was his revenge on. What
I never touched your fucking channel.
No, I didn't mean like that you did it, but that was karma. That was karmic.
Now listen. This is the stream of peace, redemption, and forgiveness. We're not going to have it.
I was just saying. I was just saying.
No, I didn't accuse him of doing it.
Experience.
This is a prayerful space of mercy, charity, and forgiveness. Okay.
Yes. No, I just meant
that coming here to fight. I'll tell you that much.
Karma. No, I'm not trying. That's why I was like, "What the fuck?" No, I just meant that maybe that was karma coming back on me. But no, it was the front page of the Wall Street Journal coming back on me. Actually,
what you have to remember about that time, though, is there was a concerted effort to take everybody down.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
Right, like it was a major concerted effort.
But think about this. Yeah, we're a bunch of, other than Milo, we're basically a bunch of nobodies, right? And
well, I don't know.
No, but I'm saying in terms of like from a mainstream perspective, we're not.
Well,
we're not
true. I wasn't on Bill Maher. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. All right.
But so my point is that from a mainstream media perspective, we're essentially nobodies, and yet all of us, I'm betting, have had major newspapers write hit pieces about us. I mean, you guys were on the front. You were on the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal.
I've been in the New York. I've been had hit pieces about me everywhere from the New York Times to the Guardian. The Guardian seems to do one about every other year. To the New Zealand Herald.
Washington Post hit me up. I think it was the Sun hit me up one time as well.
I mean, think about the level. Think about the level of fear that they had to generate. That our challenge to them generated for them to respond in that way.
Yes, and I think the point that Vox is making, which is right, is that proportionate to or relative to everybody's, I guess, media profile, whatever it is, the antibody response was gigantic, right? It was enormous. And it's not just the 4 people on this call. There are like 40 of us, and each of those people had something happen like that. And many of us who sort of parlayed that into some kind of representation or contribution in the Trump election era and beyond had it happen again and again and again. So punching so far above one's weight, which everybody in this side of the movement really did, on account of being smarter and the right and whatnot. It's something that we can reflect on with pride, I think, and a sense of accomplishment, because for the most part, we'll talk about this a bit more in the next hour with Sargon, but for the most part, the entire, let's say the feminist leftist side of Gamergate is dead and buried. They're gone. And in almost every case on our side, people have emerged as enhanced or as more distinguished or more successful figures in almost every way, even if it's just a person. So it's I don't share the sort of skepticism of some people that say, oh, it sort of fizzled out and it died and it was a failure and all the rest of it. I think there's enormous success, as is demonstrated by the lasting fear to this day that many of the names associated with Gamergate still have over journalists. I mean, the Guardian is obsessed with Uvox because most of the writers are into sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, and because you are you're the major antagonist in so many of those fields, right? So they're obsessed with you in that regard because they're all into those particular genres. Everybody on this call still has clout in that regard, which I think is something to be proud of.
Well, I think that it is something to be proud of. I mean, I put it on my resume.
I've never had one. I've never had a resume. Maybe I should make one.
No, but like for example, we've been doing some. We're sponsoring now. Castelli Library is sponsoring an English football team in the National League, and National League South at this point. And one of the first things I told them was, "Hey, I'm an original Gamergater. And if you have a problem with that, tough." They had to look it up. They didn't know what the hell it was, but they came back. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that was cool."
A lot of people don't know what it is. That's the other thing. 10 years later, it's like, it's the boogeyman of the internet. And if I talk to people about it and they'll go, "Oh, I did. I've heard," someone told me once, like, "Oh, I heard it was like this harassment campaign." I'm like, go to vault.fbi.gov/Gamergate and read the 2-year investigation where all they found was it was trolls. That's it.
Yep.
That's all it is. But Brianna Wu, like that, she built her entire career off of lying about that. And the fact that, the fact that she's still allowed in even progressive spaces drives me up the wall.
Dude, Tim Pool had her on. What the fuck? Like, no offense.
Tim Pool's
no offense. I know Milo was just on there. I won't go in as hard as I normally would, but yeah.
I think Ralph and I agree on that one. So
down to West Virginia now and again. So it's not.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
No, I mean, John Flint, known to some of you as Brianna Wu of the Melted Face. No, I mean, this is telling the same lies today as 10 years ago. I've got a Porsche collection, and all this kind of weird sort of just very bizarre and peculiar person who's been propped up. Brianna Wu might be the feminist who did the best out of Gamergate. Can you believe that?
That's true. Wow. I think that's true.
Because it's a man. Obviously.
It's like a tranny winning the gold medal at the Olympics.
She won the Gamergate gold medal of best woman because she's a man. Yes, just like those swimmers, the gigantic swimmers, just like them.
And by the way, I was face to face with this fucker, and he is literally like, he's taller than you, Milo. Like, John Flint is tall as fuck, and I thought he was coming to take a swing at me, and I was like, oh, fuck, I'm about to get decked.
No, that's Mr. Flint is a 6'4", strapping 6'4",
yes,
from Ohio. Like, in a sane universe would have been a quarterback or something.
Yeah, dude. Like, it was like.
Well, my question is, what does Brianna Wu have on Cenk Uygur? That's my question, because like Cenk is cozied up to her, and that's interesting. If you guys have been following it through the Young Turk,
the same reason that people are nice to Laura Loomer, they just don't want to reap the whirlwind. I cannot face 6 days of that crazy fucking bitch.
How does anyone not stand next to her and
just be nice?
Does anyone ever ask her if she is that woman from the movie The Purge?
She's like it's true. Soft, but
like...
I had to apologize to Laura lately because I offered a ceasefire and she didn't take it. She didn't reply to me. So I posted I posted a video saying, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have used the money that I got for writing your book to have these ads broadcast on Florida TV when you were running for Congress. And it was the little jigsaw thing coming forward. I'll play the ad in a second. I'm going to send it to you, Rob, so you can play it. She's another. Oh, anyway, talking trannies. Move on. The jury's out, by the way. The jury's out.
I've heard that theory. There's a really deep theory. Anyway, I'll leave it alone. Yeah.
No, it's not for today. Not for today.
Not for today. All right.
But
Matt and I are both sitting here going,
Milo and I know exactly the same thing.
Laura Loomer is. I know who she is.
Okay, got it.
There's a theory that she's not quite what she says.
There's a document. There's a document that bears the name Lawrence Loomer, and it's never been validated. But I have seen an image of it. The worst thing about Laura is well, aside from the fact that she told me that she had sex with Richard Spencer while her dog was tonguing her. Never mind. But the worst thing about Laura is sorry, it's family friendly show. The worst thing about Laura is she's always going on about how she can't have a concealed carry license in Florida because the FBI is after her. So no, it's because you've been forcibly 5150 in a psych ward by your own father 4 times. So she appealed to the FBI, got this letter saying, the reason you can't have a gun is not because we're after you. The reason you can't have a gun is because you're mental. This is not the explanation she gives in her fundraising letters, obviously, but I do have that letter. Anyway,
people still link that article, by the way, even though the Loomer article.
I still remember the tire, the fucking tire, man.
Do you remember I made her play Rot or Not? I did. I briefly had a show in Florida, and I got her into the studio, and I put up pictures of tires that had been slashed and tires that had gone rotten, and I made her play Rot or Not, and see if she could tell the difference, because her tire just disintegrated from being old, and she paid a mechanic to write that it had been slashed. This is not slashing. This is just tires just wrong. Anyway, so I got her in, and she kind of laughed it off and watched it, but then went straight back to claiming it again. It's like, okay, if you're gonna like show just a little bit of self-awareness for once in your life, good on you. I didn't know you had it in you. But don't then go straight back to telling people it was slashed. Like, just mental. We're so off topic. Please, somebody bring us back on.
By the way, Punish Far First says, don't forget the wet bread smell. I just saw James Gardner said Ralph for 5. The plot thickens. That was from earlier. And I'm looking, let's see, there was something that actually did have a question.
As we move into the second half of this hour, maybe we could take questions or answer anything for any of the 4 of us from Super Chats that I know have been coming in all day. Maybe Ralph, if there's anything interesting there.
Yeah, there's one here. Milo, you must be loving Ralph blowing you this much. Care to comment? Is what
nothing new. I like it as much as I've always liked it. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, well,
I like it more if you're black, though.
We've had our periods here and there.
We've had our periods for which I, in my infinite grace and mercy, have forgiven you. But no, look, Ralph Ralph will be here before. Ralph will be here after. Ralph is a constant. Ralph is an immutable fact of the digital universe. You know. So there's no choice but to get on board with Ralph and the Killstream, because like the seasons, he ebbs and flows in popularity, ebbs and flows in sobriety, but he is always present. He's always there. And I have to tell you, the thing I like about Ralph is, like as messy as he is, and I'm messy too in my own ways. He has these like really unexpected moments of profundity and humanity and like erudition. This is like, oh, I was in the fine art gallery. I just find Ralph endlessly interesting, and a nice guy, despite his terrible behavior and awful things that he's done to everybody.
Well, and only person there has
you're not exactly known as Angel either, but I appreciate those comments, sir. I really do.
I have an affinity with Ralph because I feel like we've been through so many wars together and we've done so much together. It's just like, we will probably in the next 30 years we will probably diverge and then meet again and diverge and meet again. The next Nick Fuentes, I'll lose you for another 9 months. But no, there's just this. I get Ralph, and I am very fond of Ralph in a way that will never go away. So any compliments from Ralph touch my heart.
Thank you for saying that. And somebody asked me earlier it was a groper, of course, and they're like, "Why'd you have the so and so pedo on?" Da, 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 da. Of course, they say the same line that Nick says, right? I'm like, you don't really understand. I've known Milo for these full 10 years, right? And of course, we've had our ebbs and flows and disagreements, and we might not talk for a while. But there's always been, at least from me, a respect of what you did for my career. I wouldn't have one without you. And even when I was mad at you for whatever bullshit reason, I always respected that. I wouldn't be here talking to these people right now without you. And so I'll thank you.
Anything he does, I'm really to blame.
That's right. Yeah.
any platform or position or power that Ralph has abused, anything he's ever done that is completely unconscionable and disgusting, I am ultimately responsible for. So please feel free to share the vitriol in my direction too.
Do you remember Peter Coffin? Here's a question. I don't know if anybody here does.
I was actually talking to him the other day.
Really? How's he doing?
Yeah. Doing okay. I found each other agreeing over some stuff online, kind of followed each other back on Twitter. We don't agree on everything, but yeah, he's working on some documentaries now, and he's still working over at Gamergate. So he's just kind of living his life.
Well, that's cool. I never really hated the guy or anything like that.
Did you ever see the Steve Harvey appearance with him?
No.
Where he kicked himself in the balls?
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
Still funny as fuck.
I think we played that during Gamergate, yeah.
I'm a beta as cut.
It's pretty tough if I have to kick myself and my own self in the balls. I'm getting kicked in the balls, maybe in a courtroom, but...
No, don't show your fucking junk on the internet then. That's going to get you
I got out of trouble out of that one. That was only a year suspended. That's nothing where I'm from,
I don't know if I'd brag about that, but sure, I get you.
Yeah. Well, we're from two different places, right?
That's true.
I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, where a year suspended ain't shit. That just means you got away with it, basically. Daniel Larson says, Milo, besides religion, what makes Milo tick? What makes Milo wake up in the morning to champion and seize the day? Also, are you excited for no tax on tips under Trump or Kamala's administration?
No, I don't believe in rewarding failure. I don't. Anybody who's like still working for tips after college, I think we should be punishing them as harshly as possible. I'm a believer in regressive taxation. I think we should tax the lowest earners the most, and then eventually it just becomes zero tax as you earn kind of 250 and above. That's the reality anyway. Nobody, especially wealthy, pays very much tax or any tax at all anyway. So just codify it, make it simple, and encourage people to do better and to get into higher, meaning lower rates of tax all along. Just have some sort of simple, flat 20% tax for people at the lower end that tapers off into nothing to encourage people to make more, do more, create more jobs, and get better. So I think regressive taxation is the most moral and simple and creates the most positive and sensible incentives. So no, I think we should tax tips. I mean, I don't really. Anyway,
I disagree. Because look, Trump said no tax on tips, period. Now, she said for service workers. Now, if you say no tax on tips, period, that means everything. These super chats are tips. I got news for you. And so that would mean these super chats are tax free. And so
I haven't had good enough service in America in 2 years to tip anyone anything.
because everyone knows who you are.
What?
It's because everyone knows who you are.
Oh, but yeah, I expect my food to have urine in it, and then people would be like, yeah. I was in Detroit like 2 years ago, and I was like, surely I can go to Detroit, Michigan, and just escape and just have a lunch. And so I go into this bar and I sit down with a friend, and lo and behold, this Miss Thing comes up with her black fingernails. Says, "We know who you are, and we will not be serving you." Oh God, she's like going for lunch is a nightmare. So I don't leave the house now. I mean, I go out about once a week now.
But in Switzerland, there is no tipping, and it was when we first got here, whatever it was, 20 some years ago. I remember I had a coffee and a bottle of wine with a friend of mine, and I left like there's some change left over, and so I just put a 5 franc piece down, and the waitress picked it up and chased me down the street.
Mm-hmm. Whereas if you do that over here, some homosexual will come up to you and say, you might want to rethink that, and slap it down on the table because it's not enough money.
Okay.
Give it left enough, so you're going to get bawled out by somebody. No, it's terrible. It's terrible. We're wandering off topic, which probably means it's time for us to transition into our third hour, slightly early.
Yeah.
With Sargon and Picard. Now that's a pre-recorded segment. If you were watching the Killstream all over this afternoon, we're replaying that segment from this afternoon for American and for evening viewers, which does mean that the people you see on screen will be taking a little break. But very warmly, I know that it's very late for you, Fox, so I think probably now's the time for us to say thank you so much to you and to say goodnight. Matt, if you'd like to stay for the rest of the show, we'd be very, very happy and glad and delighted to have you. But we're going to take a little break now. Is that okay if we do that now, Ralph? Do you have that?
Yeah, that's fine. I will say I missed the first 10 minutes, which is really the best part. But that's okay because I'm going to chop it up on its own tomorrow and put it out for its own copy. That's where I apologize to Sargon for some things I had said years ago.
Yes.
Actually.
But
we talk about it later on in the broadcast, and it's still like hours worth of material.
What I'm surprised at, though, Ralph, to be honest with you, is like you and me are here. We're not fighting, and the super chats aren't rolling in trying to like recreate 2018.
Yeah, I mean, you see some of it in the chat, but like I don't feel like there's been much engagement. I know you were involved with a certain clan out there in California. That I made peace with them as well, and so
I don't fucking talk to like anyone anymore. Like
right.
Legit.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's why there's no real reason for us to fight in the first place. Now, if Jim, rolled up in his wheelchair, we might have a reason to throw down me and him. But
I'm still working on getting him. There's still a chance for the 4th hour. But in the meantime, you're welcome for the peace.
Actually, you know what? I would just like to talk about Gamergate. I said I would just like to have an actual conversation about Gamergate with him, but we could talk shit too. That'd be fine.
Never say never. We'll try. We'll see.
Okay. And there's another question though, real quick. Milo, could you ever see yourself aligning with? This is the other thing they really want us to talk about in our last hour. We mentioned machine gunning some people, but not literally.
I'm happy to list people I would like to machine gun.
Milo, could you ever see yourself aligning with Nick Fuentes? And if so, under what circumstances? What if Nick promises to be straight and repent? Is what that said.
You shouldn't overpromise, though. I would be willing to consider a ceasefire with Nick if he apologizes for the very terrible things that he has done. I don't see that as a realistic prospect in the immediate future.
I told people that earlier. I've said some things, and you've said some things about me too, to be fair. But, I apologize. We had our conversations, and it was water under the bridge, really. I think people don't give you enough credit for being, like, reasonable and forgiving.
I will tell you this. I have done some very vindictive and very churlish and spiteful things to people, but I never strike first. Never in my career. You will never find an exception. You will never find an instance where I've gone after somebody first. Never, no how, no where. I never strike first, but if you come for me, you gonna die. Now, let's move on to our if we have no more questions, then we can
well, I could scroll way back, but I think people are ready to see Sargon.
Well, let's have some of those ready for the last hour. While Sargon's on, and then Matt, I would love for you to stick around if you want to after this.
Or he can jump back in after if he's still.
I got my kids. The guys start getting ready for bed here pretty soon, and so I got to kind of start winding them down. This thing being a dad, man, you got to fucking deal with the kid.
Yeah.
We're happy to see you. We're glad to see you doing so well, and congratulations on having a family and a happy and beautiful chapter in your life that you're in. So
very cool.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. Yeah, no, I love them. They're great. Being a dad is like one of the coolest things like ever. So
all right,
very cool.
Gotta love it. But all right, guys, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Jarbo.
Vox, as always, you bring a heady dash of erudition. Always lifts the tone and tenor in every room. So thank you for that. Appreciate you for that. I'm going to bow out briefly, and Ralph is going to roll the Sargon interview from earlier.
That's right.
And some or all of us, and possibly with some people you haven't heard of yet, and maybe it's a little surprise. Possibly, I'm not promising, but maybe after that, it's an hour for the final prolong. But
we shall
in the meantime,
see.
God bless you. Talk soon.
All right. See you in a minute, Milo. Thank you, Vox Day. Thank you, Matt Jarbo. And let me find the recording from earlier. There it is, right here. Give me just a second. Like I said, I missed the first 10 minutes. I'm going to clip it out on its own. Don't worry about that. Thank you, Vox. I appreciate you stopping by, man.
Good to see you, and long live the whole Gamergate crew.
Agreed. Even the ones I don't like Medicare. All right, later, man.
Take it easy.
Peace out. Love him, but long enough for me to see what I want to see. Okay.
Thank you for watching this clip by Colonel J. This is the King of Bold here. Remember to like and subscribe. Juice!